Title: The Accidental Confession During Family Reunion. USA Family Drama. One secret, one slip of the tongue, and one family reunion that would change everything. When laughter turned into silence, the truth no one was ready to hear shattered generations of love, trust, and loyalty. Every family has its stories, some cherished, some buried. But when the Johnsons gather for their annual reunion in a quiet lakeside town in America, an innocent game of truth-telling spirals out of control. A single accidental confession unleashes hidden affairs, old betrayals, and choices that were never meant to be spoken aloud. This is not just a reunion. It is the night that rips apart siblings, parents, and children, forcing them to confront the lies that built their legacy. The gathering at Maple Lake. The first weekend of July had always belonged to the Johnsons. For 34 years straight, no matter where life scattered them, New York, Dallas, Seattle, or the quiet suburbs of Ohio, they returned to Maple Lake, the sleepy Wisconsin town where it all began. The reunion was sacred, stitched into the family's history like the red and white quilt that hung on the cabin wall, sewn by Grandma Evelyn herself. This year, the cabin seemed even more alive than usual. Fairy lights glowed across the porch railing. The smell of hickory smoke drifted from the grill where Uncle Rick, spatula in hand, was already flipping burgers with the pride of a king. Kids ran barefoot across the grass, chasing fireflies, their laughter rising above the soft strum of a guitar someone had picked up. To outsiders, it was perfect, an all-American family tableau. But inside, beneath the warmth, lay tensions that had been building for years. Emma Johnson, the eldest daughter at 37, arrived first with her husband Daniel and their teenage son Liam. She was meticulous, polished in her pressed sundress and pearl earrings, but her smile faltered every time Daniel drifted too far into his phone. Next came Sarah, 34, the rebel of the family. Tattoos down her arm, fiery red hair, sunglasses pushed high on her head. She traveled from city to city with her freelance photography, never staying still long enough for roots. The family called her the free spirit, though sometimes Emma whispered the failure under her breath. Then came Michael, the golden boy. At 31, he carried the quiet confidence of someone who'd always been loved just a little more than the rest. He had a new fiancée on his arm, Rachel, who smiled too brightly, eager to impress a family that wasn't hers yet. Last to arrive was David, the youngest at 28, still single, still drifting. He had dropped out of college years ago and floated through odd jobs since. His charm masked his insecurities, but his mother, Linda Johnson, saw through him every time. Linda and her husband Richard, the family's anchors, watched their children gather with pride, though age had etched worry lines into their faces. Richard's once broad shoulders had narrowed with the years, but his voice remained steady, commanding respect with every word. The table on the porch groaned under the weight of potato salad, corn on the cob, baked beans, and pies cooling in the evening air. They clinked glasses, toasted to family forever, and dug in as if nothing in the world could break them. But everyone carried something unsaid. Emma carried the weight of a marriage cracking in silence. Sarah carried jealousy, she masked with jokes and wine. Michael carried a secret he thought would never come to light. David carried guilt that pressed on him every sleepless night. The night unfolded with laughter, food, and too much beer. But all of it was only the surface. None of them knew that before the weekend ended, Maple Lake would no longer be remembered for laughter and fireflies, but for the words that escaped at the wrong moment. Games, laughter, and lingering shadows. As tradition demanded, the second evening was game night. After dinner, the family gathered in the cabin's great room, a rustic space of exposed beams and crackling firelight, even in the warm July air. It started innocently, charades, trivia, Pictionary. Laughter came easily, especially after a few more drinks. Then Sarah, sprawled across the couch with a glass of wine, smirked. "Let's make it interesting," she said. "Truth or dare?" The younger cousins squealed, eager for mischief. The older generation groaned, but relented. It had always been a favorite when they were kids, though now the truths carried heavier weight. Emma went first, choosing truth. Sarah grinned. Do you ever wish you'd chosen a different life? The room went still. Daniel glanced up from his phone. Emma laughed lightly, brushing it off. Of course not. I have everything I need. But Sarah's knowing eyes lingered. The game rolled on. Michael admitted he once cheated on a high school exam. David confessed he had once stolen money from his father's wallet as a teenager. Harmless, funny. Everyone laughed. But as the night grew late and inhibitions faded, the questions cut deeper. Who's mom's favorite? Who got away with the worst lie? Who holds the biggest grudge? Wine loosened tongues and little truths slipped out like cracks in ice. Finally, it was Michael's turn again. Rachel, his fiancée, leaned in and teased, "Truth or dare love?" Michael smirked. "Truth." David, who had grown quiet, leaned forward. His eyes glittered with something darker than mischief. "Okay," he said slowly. "Tell us the biggest secret you've kept from this family." Everyone laughed nervously. "Good one," Uncle Rick chuckled. But David didn't laugh. His stare pinned Michael. Michael hesitated. His hand tightened around Rachel's. I don't know. I mean, I don't really have one." David's voice cut through the silence. "Then should I tell them for you?" The room stilled. Emma frowned. "David, stop. It's a game." But Michael's face had already drained of color. "What are you talking about?" Rachel asked, her smile faltering. And then it happened. The moment that would unravel everything. Michael opened his mouth to speak, but David beat him to it. "He's not the man you think he is, Rachel. He's been hiding something. And the worst part," his voice cracked, raw with anger, "it involves me." The room erupted. Voices clashed, questions flew. Rachel stared at Michael, frozen. What does he mean? But Michael couldn't answer. His silence was the answer. And just like that, the laughter was gone. The Johnson family reunion would never be the same. The accidental confession. The cabin was suddenly too small, the air too thick. Everyone was talking at once. "David, what the hell are you saying?" Richard thundered. "Michael, explain this." Emma demanded. Rachel pulled her hand from Michael's, tears forming. "Is it true?" Michael rubbed his face, shaking his head. "I didn't mean... God, I never wanted this to come out like this." "Then say it," David spat. "Say what you did." Rachel's voice trembled. "Michael?" The words slipped out before he could stop them. "I slept with Rachel before you ever met her." Silence. The world seemed to tilt. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. "What?" Emma gasped audibly. Sarah muttered, "Holy shit." Michael's eyes darted to Rachel. "It was years ago. Before we were together. I never thought, Rachel, I never thought we'd..." But David wasn't done. His chest rose and fell with fury. "That's not the whole truth, is it? Tell them about me, Michael." Michael's face twisted in pain. "David, stop." "No," David snapped. "You stop lying." All eyes turned to them. David stood, his voice shaking but loud enough to cut through the room. "You weren't just with Rachel. You've been lying for years. You ruined me, Michael. You," his voice cracked. "You slept with the only girl I ever loved. You knew. And you didn't care." The confession landed like a thunderclap. Linda's hand clutched her chest. Richard's face darkened with disbelief. Emma covered her mouth, stunned. Michael stood, stepping toward his brother. "David, I never meant to hurt you. It was a mistake." "A mistake?" David's laugh was broken. "You stole her from me. And then you brought Rachel here, like nothing ever happened." Rachel backed away, tears streaming. "Michael, is this true?" Michael's silence was enough. The Johnson reunion, once bound by tradition, had just been split open by an accidental confession that could never be taken back. Shattered bonds. The next 2 hours were chaos. Voices shouted over one another. Accusations flew, and tears fell. Rachel locked herself in the upstairs bedroom, refusing to speak to Michael. David stormed outside, pacing the dark yard by the lake, muttering to himself. Emma and Sarah argued bitterly in the kitchen, Emma defending Michael as the responsible one, Sarah calling him a coward and hypocrite. Linda sat in her armchair, staring into nothing, while Richard tried to regain control, his booming voice shaking with anger. "Enough," he finally shouted. "We are family. We don't destroy each other like this." But the truth was already out. Michael tried to explain, but every word only dug him deeper. "It was years ago. It didn't mean anything," he pleaded. But David's reply cut him down. "It meant everything to me." Emma tried to calm Rachel, but Rachel's words were final. "How can I marry a man who lies like this? Who betrays his own brother?" The family fractured into sides. Some defended Michael, insisting people make mistakes. Others sided with David, saying betrayal this deep could never be forgiven. Old resentments resurfaced. Emma accused Sarah of always stirring trouble. Sarah accused Emma of being blind to everyone's flaws. Richard accused his sons of dishonoring the family. Linda broke down, sobbing that her children were tearing each other apart. By dawn, the Johnson family was no longer whole. What remains after truth? The morning after was eerily quiet. The lake shimmered under the sun. Birds chirped as if nothing had happened, but inside the cabin, the silence was heavy. Rachel packed her bags and left without a word. Michael watched her car disappear down the gravel road, his chest hollow. David sat alone on the dock, staring at the water. His anger had burned into exhaustion. He didn't look up when Michael approached. "I'm sorry," Michael said softly. David's jaw clenched. "Sorry doesn't give me back what you took." Michael sat beside him anyway. For a long time they said nothing. Inside, Emma cleaned up the dishes no one had touched. Sarah poured herself coffee, both of them too tired to argue. Linda and Richard sat together on the porch, their hands entwined despite the storm. Families are not destroyed by the truth, Linda thought, but by the silence before it. By the end of the weekend, they all went their separate ways. Some wounds would heal with time. Others would never close. But one thing was certain. The Johnson family reunion at Maple Lake would never again be about laughter, fireflies, or tradition. It would forever be remembered as the summer when one accidental confession changed everything.